Welcome to our Satoshi talk. Well, will be our first English episode because we used to invite a lot of Chinese speakers and we all speak Mandarin, but well, can understand some Mandarin, but you can't speak, right?
I can speak, yeah. Well.
So basically, I met Ken in the WeChat group, and and then he invited me for a coffee talk. We talk about a lot of things, and I see a lot of vision from Ken. And maybe Ken, you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Ken Yang. I was born and raised in Toronto, and I've been in the blockchain space for a little bit more than about half a year now. And so I partnered up with a Teal fellow to work on a new blockchain company that is democratizing innovation. And the name of the company is Globle, Globle, like Noble. And the idea is that there's a lot of great ideas in the world, a lot of really good IP, but they exist solely in people's minds, right? And so for an idea to come to fruition and to be executed, there's so many things that need to come together correctly at the same time, right? You have a great idea, you want to commercialize it or bring it to the real world, you need to have the right team, the right funding, it has to be the right timing, good chemistry, so many factors. And as a result, the vast majority of IP and ideas that are good don't get executed and don't become reality. Mm-hmm. So you can actually make the argument that perhaps the majority of wealth potential in our universe exists in our brains and will never be exploited. So what Globle was doing is building a pipeline for ideas. And as soon as a good idea is thought of, it gets validated by the market, it gets sourced by the crowd, and it gets automatically paired with the optimal talent, and it gets financed by the community, and it gets launched and managed and overseen by the community. So Globle is a platform that's owned by everybody and is financed and managed by the crowd.
From what I understand, you guys are going to do an ICO. However, that's not like a traditional ICO where people just give you guys money and that's it. But you guys are improving on it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we all know about the shortcomings of ICOs and how crowd sales became, it entered the mainstream mindset in the last year or so, right? And more we're actually seeing it become very hard to distinguish the speculative value of a token from its utility value. Right? We even see like people like Joe Lieb and Vitalik like openly tweet, "Did we earn $100 billion valuation?" Right? Because people aren't using it, right? And but crowd sales have been around since like Kickstarter, in 2011, and even crowd sales before that. People are very comfortable with it, right? But the problem with ICOs is that it affords like zero investor protection, right? No recourse, no rights for the most part.
There's no monitoring.
Yeah, no monitoring. No say, absolutely. Right? Yeah. So, but then if you look at the ethos or the philosophy behind securities law, right? Even like in the preamble in the Securities Act of 1933, which is like the first time like legislation was passed in the States regarding like the sale of securities, right? And I'm not trying to get into like an argument about whether tokens are securities or not, right? The preamble like openly states, and I'm paraphrasing here, which is that the Securities Act, the purpose of this is to protect investors from fraudulent schemes and exposure to undue risk.
From what I understand, like there is a proposal of some sort called a decentralized autonomous ICO, something like that. Are you guys doing that, or are you guys doing something else? Yeah,
so Globle is actually improving on what's called the DICO or the DICO model, and the DICO, DAICO. This is a new concept that was proposed in January.
Yeah.
By Vitalik, and we've actually been working with the Ethereum Foundation to improve on that. So the DICO proposes two new elements, right, to the crowd sale model. One is the tap, which is an amount of funding that's unlocked every second.
Which is like sort of decided by the community.
Yeah. And this puts like a limit on how much the project team can access, right, at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is the second element is a resolution for self-destruction. And so at any moment, an investor who has lost confidence in the project can make a proposal to vote on terminating the project.
Right.
And if a majority of token holders say yes, then the project gets terminated and all the remaining funds get distributed back to the investors.
So how does your proposal improve on the ICO?
Yeah, so that's a good starting point. Now there are several improvements that are necessary, right? And Globle's implementing this right now. One is there needs to be a second layer of protection over both the tap and the self-destruct vote. So imagine, we all know about the scandal with Uber,
Yeah.
right? Now imagine Uber had a bunch of token holders, and following the sex scandal with Trevor Melnick, like the majority of token holders just got really pissed at the CEO and said, hey, we don't like this company, we don't like the culture, we don't like the DNA or the CEO, and they just voted to self-destruct the company. And then one day, Uber just disappears.
Yeah.
Right. This is a real likelihood, especially when a lot of the holders are anonymous, right? They become a lot more irrational, right? So there needs to be a second layer, right?
Okay.
So there's something called like a decision making function for voting, and another one which is like a more of a intuitive or coordination model, right? So like layer 1 or layer 2 decision making. Layer 1 decision making is where when you vote, it's like very black and white. It's coded in, right?
Yeah.
So you vote, and if it passes, it just automatically happens. So that's like this decision making function. You have a bunch of inputs, and then the model like works it out, and
Okay.
then the output is like
Well,
output.
that's layer 2.
Then layer 2 is a coordination model, right? Where somebody submits a proposal, like an EIP, right? And then the community votes on it, right? Or they give their feedback. But at the end of the day, it's much more of like a subjective coordination between the crowd. It's not so black and white, right? Even if the vote passes through, they can still say, well, maybe that's not good for the community. So it's a little bit more fuzzy, right? So when you have really large stakes, like a massive ICO project,
Yeah.
right, that can be at the whim of the crowd to be just terminated, you need both layers. You need layer 1, where the token holders vote, and and it passes, and then the decision making function gives an output that says, okay, the crowd has voted, right? But then the layer 2 is seen by the community that coordinates this and says, okay, well, we have to really evaluate this a little bit more carefully, right? So in the sense of Globle's ICO model, when the project value is sufficiently large that this risk becomes a real danger, there needs to be a committee that oversees this, that represents the investor
So
crowd.
who chooses this committee?
So the committee is made up of members representing the investor crowd,
Okay.
the team,
Right.
so the project team that got funded, as well as an impartial member.
Okay.
And this impartial member is the independent overseer of a global network.
Interesting.
And they're chosen by their
It's like a next level
incumbents.
DAO in a way.
Yeah, the DAO is a really interesting concept, but
Yeah.
it needs to be designed flawlessly,
Yeah.
because there's so much at stake. So that's regarding the self-destruct
Yeah.
resolution. The other one is the tap.
Yeah.
Okay, the tap actually is there are a lot of projects that can't, if you impose too low of a ceiling on the team's access to
There's
funding.
too little the funding.
Yeah, it will starve the project. Right. Think about a lot of essentially consumer-facing venture-backed companies that have the model of grow fast and die fast.
Yeah.
And if you set a tap on it, actually will really it will just like starve, right? So the tap needs to be supplemented by an initial injection. Right?
Okay.
So an initial injection that is proposed by the team leader.
Okay. Approved by the community, I see.
Yeah, and approved by the community, and also a tap rate that's proposed by the team leader, approved or vetoed by the community, right? Because when you're starting a project, you cannot start with like $0 in the bank or zero anything in the bank.
Yeah.
right? The biggest fixed cost investment are in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? So it needs to start with a capital injection in the beginning, and then after that, the tap itself actually doesn't prevent the team leader or the team from just buying Lambos, right? Like even if you set the tap like pretty low, they could just save up and lie, right? And say, oh, we're doing a really good job. We're landing all these partnerships, whatever the word partnerships means, right? We have a ton of users, but they can just save up for like a year and fake all the data and just run off and buy Lambos, right? So there needs to be a second layer. The first layer is layer 1. It's coded right in. It's object-oriented legal framework. The second layer is overseen by members of all the communities, right? Which is like, funds in the project, first of all, need to be, the balance needs to be transparent to everyone. You can always see it at all times. Like it's a public company, imagine, right? But when you invest money into a Kickstarter project, or when you invest money into an ICO, there's very little transparency. For most of the time, it's actually opaque.
Yeah, just most of the time it's just a scam. Basically, the team can run away, right?
Yeah. But then if you invested in a public company that IPO'd, there are mandatory requirements for them to, publicize all of their financial documents.
Yeah, that's true. Just every season, right?
Right. So the future state of crowd sales will be that all the project wallets, all the balances, and all the transactions will just be public and viewable at all times. Not only that, there's another layer where funding from the project wallet can go to one of two types of wallets. One is a verified wallet, especially for like salaries, like project team members, right? So those team members need to verify. They need to be KYC'd, right? And then this is for like the most legitimate companies, projects, right? And then there's going to be a discretionary wallet because you don't want to introduce 100% friction, right? A discretionary wallet where funds from the project wallet can go to that, and then that's a multi-sig escrow that can be used to, pay for suppliers or contractors, whatever, right? That is discretionary, right? But that is like overseen. So with this 2 layers of protection, right, you vastly limit the potential for the team leader to just go dark and spend all of the crypto on, or whatever, the funding on just buying Lambos.
Yeah.
And so this is quickly where the crowd sale model is moving, right? Is increasing protection for the investor, increasing transparency.
And that's the model you guys are going to do potentially.
Yeah.
Potential to go with. Interesting. Let me ask you some philosophical questions regarding blockchain in general, since you are in this space. Like, what do you think are the biggest advantage that blockchain bring to our world? Like, why are you interested in it?
Yeah, so there's a few takes on the blockchain space that have really been inspiring for me. One is that blockchain is it's a worldwide trustless network for incentivization.
Okay.
Right. So one of the first things I did in Globle was to bring on economists onto our board.
Okay.
One is Joshua Gans, who's the chief economist of the Creative Destruction Lab, which is the largest accelerator in Canada and also the highest cited academic in economics for cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And the second one is a guy by the name John Conley, who is a professor at Vanderbilt University and also a white paper author himself, right? And with the blockchain system, you can design the right system of incentives, right? Even before any of the coding has started, if you design the right incentives, that everybody will participate,
And
fruitfully.
Participate in a good way.
Yeah, participate in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Like proof of work, proof of stake, we all see this as beyond just like technologies, but like mechanism designs, right? That incentivize everybody to participate and secure the network. Right? And the other thing that's great about blockchain is that it has the potential of opening up the bottom half of the world economy.
What do you mean by that? Like, how do you open up the bottom half of the people in the world?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is what's happening in Africa right now.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at like Kenya in the last decade, they started using a currency aside from their national currency or USD, right? because imagine you're in a country where your currency is inflating by like 30% a month. Right? Like this is a real problem.
Probably just use US dollar, I assume.
Yeah, there are countries that have done that, you know.
Yeah. Or use
but-
Chinese dollars.
Right. But so that's what they did. Yeah, like use the RMB, right? That's what they were doing in Kenya, but it became a big problem of transferring cash in and out of the country.
Right.
Right. So if you had relatives in another part of Africa or outside of Africa, there was a lot of friction. a lot of
Interesting.
transaction
So
fees.
cryptocurrency essentially opening up some kind of financial services to those people with, well, basically the unbanked people, like help
Yeah.
them to have access in the finance world.
Absolutely, the 2 billion unbanked people or undocumented people, right?
And then after they get access to a certain level of financing, you believe that essentially that it is going to improve their economic like status or some sort like
Oh yeah,
environment,
absolutely.
everything.
Yeah, because a lot of the problems that we're facing in Africa are now actually being, there's a lot of friction being imposed by regulators. There's a lot of barriers to foreign direct investment, right? And you even see it like the massive firewall in China, right? There's a lot of like if that was opened up suddenly, that there would be a lot like the global flow of information and capital would just be on average would just be better for the world.
It's very interesting. In China, there's a saying, to be rich, you first need to build roads. In your opinion, basically, you're saying blockchain in some way builds financial roads for those poor people.
Yeah.
And it builds a financial road for them to have access to things. And that's it's going to drastically improve like pretty much everything for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the blockchain industry has allowed us to basically, it's allowed us to lower the barriers to access to capital, especially access to foreign capital. Right.
When do you think that can happen?
It's already happening right now, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you think it's going to take effect?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that every day it's just making it better.
And you do
And
believe-
definitely in our generation,
Yeah.
we'll see a lot of communities that are now connected, are coming online.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in Africa
Yeah.
or in parts of South America or the Middle East, where people are just coming online through a smartphone, and then their access to crypto just changes entire generations at a time, and this will happen in our generation.
So Bitcoin, people say it's the digital gold or whatever. Do you believe that something like that can actually happen, where people regard Bitcoin as gold, essentially?
I think people already do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People
but
already believe Bitcoin is a gold.
Maybe you believe it.
yeah. No, I mean like I think it is very valuable as a crypto asset, and definitely there's a massive community that there's a lot of entrenchment there,
Yeah.
right? It's very hard for another cryptocurrency to, in the short run I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right, to really overcome that entrenchment. But at the same time, there's many types of jewelry.
Yeah.
There's many types of precious metals.
Sure.
So
Yeah. How did you came up the global idea?
So this is an idea that has existed for several years.
For several years.
Yeah, and we started working on it about 10 weeks ago.
Okay.
Right? And the original idea actually came from my partner, Simon, who is a Thiel Fellow. He's actually like the same cohort of the Thiel Fellowship as Liam, the creator of ETH Waterloo, and Vitalik's like the cohort before him. And we had previously run our own companies, so we were both in the consumer electronics space.
Okay.
And he told me about this idea of Globle like 2 years ago. But back then, it had nothing to do with the blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of these ideas that are being built and being ICO'd on the blockchain originally could have been done anyway.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that the blockchain was the perfect like lubricant
Yeah.
for it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, I believe there's a lot of apps you can solve in the traditional way, like the centralized way.
Yeah.
but just the blockchain is making it more efficient, more legit. It's a better way to solve the problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything you can want to share to our audience?
Is there anything you want to say, like your philosophical ideas, or like regarding to the world, or regarding the economy, regarding the blockchain, just anything?
Yeah, I think this is something that's going to happen in our lifetime, maybe before like the 22nd century.
The blockchain revolution.
Which is that we're actually going to achieve successfully a world government.
Interesting.
Like a jurisdictionless government, which we there's this Kardashev scale, which is type 0 civilization, type 1, type 2. Type 0 civilization is where we are right now.
Okay.
Where there's borders between countries, there's lots of walls between between economies, and we're very fragmented, and we haven't successfully harnessed the resources of our planet.
I know that you didn't grow up in China, but what you are describing, essentially people acting in an altruistic way and then having no government, basically having some sort of world jurisdiction. It's very reminiscent of me learning how communism is eventually going to work. I'm super serious.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, if
but I think the communism being taught in the West and in China is completely different. So basically what I taught was that essentially when people are super highly altruistic, so people sort of, they work as much as they can and then they'll just grab whatever they want to. Because when people are super efficient, everybody's producing at a maximum productivity or whatever, right? Then that's like a maximum efficient government or efficient society. Then yeah, I don't know. You're just describing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, communism as a model has a lot of supporters.
Yeah.
For a good reason, right? But if you ask any political scientist, they'll tell you like a authoritarian scheme.
Yeah.
Will do very well at the lowest extremes of economic progress.
Okay.
And at the highest extremes of economic surplus.
Yeah.
Right. So and they've done studies on this, right?
Yeah.
Like if below like 7,000 GDP,
Yeah.
authoritarian regimes perform the best.
Maybe.
And then above like 70,000.
But
Right. And I might be getting these numbers wrong, but like above 70,000 GDP per capita, authoritarian regimes again,
Yeah.
they prosper. Right?
Which, by the way, is not the definition of communism that I learned in China, because the version that I learned in China about communism has no governments.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there should be no governments, there should be no countries, and there should be like almost no money in a sense, because people just grab whatever the fuck they want to.
Right.
But they also work as hard as they can,
Yeah.
because they are super, I don't know,
Yeah.
selfless or something.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because the concept of a universal basic income is
Yeah.
quickly coming to mainstream minds,
Yeah.
right? Like Canada did a UBI, universal basic income, which is like a guaranteed income that no matter what you do, you get this income.
Yeah.
Like Canada did it in the 70s in Manitoba, the Mincome Project, and the results were very good. In virtually no effect on employment, lower hospitalizations rate.
When did they do it?
It's like 72 to 74.
30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And kids stayed in school longer. Graduation rates were higher. Teenage pregnancies were lower. Entrepreneurship went up. And then now Y Combinator, the largest accelerator in the world, right? They're doing a UBI project in Oakland, right? We're just like at the thousands of people just getting free money, and just to see what's happening. They did UBI projects in Switzerland. They're doing it now in Kenya, right? And a few other places in the U.S. And so far, like the progress, the results have been pretty good, right? And the blockchain can allow that to happen, right? And that's kind of one thing that Globle's working towards, right? And so and anyway, so before I was talking about this the Kardashev scale, we go from a type 0 to a type 1 civilization, only possible through the blockchain, where there's a world government that's established, and we're capable of completely harnessing all of the resources effectively and efficiently of the planet.
Yeah, I see.
Right.
So blockchain solves world hunger, It cures cancer.
Yeah, actually, that's
Yeah.
it's gonna help, right? And then we're gonna go towards like a type 2 civilization, where we harness all of the energy of our star, of the sun, right? And then type 3 civilization is where we harness it of our galaxy, right? like an inter-system, interplanetary species, right? And this is a very bold vision, but it's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
We're starting with blockchain.
Yeah.
We're starting from our show.
Yeah, and it's only possible with a trustless, efficient,
Yeah.
scalable system like
Yeah.
all the blockchain networks we're seeing.
Yeah, I'm making jokes, but I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
That's true. It's
And that's also why we're making this show in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then
Yeah. Thanks for watching our show. I'll see you next time.
see you.
Thank you.